Good morning, children. In the last class, we were discussing about that means the diagrammatic representation as well as the events of the menstrual cycle. So then after, we have to discuss about there is another important topic, the fertilization and implantation. Okay, so today we will continue the discussion with respect to these two topics. First of all, let us know the meaning of the fertilization. It is a fusion of haploid sperm and ovum to form a diploid zygote is called fertilization, and the implantation, the attachment of blastocyst to the endometrium wall of the uterus, is called implantation. Okay, so let us discuss one by one. The first topic is fertilization. As I said, the fertilization is the fusion of haploid sperm and ovum to form a diploid zygote. Okay, so during the copulation, it is also known as coitus or intercourse. The semen is released by the penis into the vagina is called insemination. Okay, so that is nothing but during intercourse or the coitus, the semen is released by the penis into the vagina. Okay, so this process is also called insemination. Here we can identify the structure of the vagina. Okay, so then you can identify the remaining structure also, the cervix, the body of the uterus, fundus, ovary, a fallopian tube, endometrium wall of the uterus, myometrium, and also cervical canal. Okay, then, so as I said, the process, so after the insemination, what will happen? The motile sperms swim rapidly that passes through the cervix to enter into the uterus and finally reach the junction of the isthmus and ampulla. So this ampulla is also known as ampullary isthmic junction of the fallopian tube, where exactly the fusion of the sperm with the male gamete, the fusion of the sperm with ovum is called fertilization, and where actually it occurs in ampullary region of the fallopian tube. Okay, so here briefly they were given. So after the, as I said, the insemination, the sperms will be, where it will be releases, it is releases into the vagina, then it will start swimming, that is a motile sperms, swim rapidly, move towards the cervical canal, then after it will reach the uterus, through the uterus it will reach the isthmus, where the ampullary region. Okay, so then here also, okay, after the releasing of the ovum from the ovary, it will releases into the fimbriae, the finger-like projections, then it will move towards the infundibulum. So through the infundibulum, finally it reaches the ampulla. So exactly at the region of ampullary region, the fertilization takes place. Okay, so in the left side also they were given the representation of the sperm reaching towards the ovum. You can identify. Okay, so this the ovum released by the ovary is also transported to the ampullary isthmic junction, where actually the fertilization takes place. One last question they can ask in the exam also, where actually the fertilization takes place. Okay, the ovum released by the ovary is also transported to the ampullary isthmic junction, where fertilization takes place. Did you got it? That ampullary region. Okay, yes. So, and after this one, what will happen? How the process will continue? The fertilization can only occur if the ovum and sperms are transported simultaneously to the ampullary isthmic junction. So this is the reason why all the copulation do not lead to fertilization and pregnancy. So there are a number of cases. Some students, they may be asking, you must have observed in the films and all, they will show that some rape cases are, rare copulations. Only once, if it will happen also, they will show it is just like a pregnancy and all. So this is actually not practically correct. Okay, remember, so if that cases, whatever it may be, the rapes or any, the copulation, it may be happens. So during the fertile period, if it will happens in the fertile period, So in the last class I was telling about, okay, if it is happens so near to the, so that means ovulatory in phase, so then only the possibility of the chances of the pregnancy, or else so all the copulation do not lead to the fertilization and pregnancy. Okay, and the process of fusion of the sperm with an ovum is called fertilization. During fertilization, a sperm comes in contact with the zona pellucida, the layer. Here the right side they were given the diagrammatic representation. You can identify clearly, okay, the layer of the ovum and induces changes in the membrane that blocks the entry of the additional sperms. So thus it ensures only one sperm can fertilize an ovum. So this type of the fertilization is also known as monospermy. I hope you can understand this one. The thing is, so wherever the semen, that means releases into the vagina, the a single drop of the semen may be containing millions of the sperms, so that all the sperms will not enters into the or fertilize into the ovum. Okay, so when it will be releases, the motile sperms swim rapidly. Okay, as I said, the process of the fusion of the sperm with an ovum is called fertilization. But during this fertilization, a single sperm, okay, so comes in contact with a first come first. It is just like a first come first. Okay, so here it is also again, that is a it is just like a competition. So one, the which sperm which reaches the first, that sperm only. Okay, so when it will be induces, generally enters into the zona pellucida layer of the ovum, induces changes in the membrane, and that is just like generate a signal to block the further entry of the additional sperms. Did you got it? Yes. And here the secretion of acrosome. Remember I told you the tip of the sperm, it is containing the lytic enzymes, isn't it? So this secretion of the acrosomes helps the sperms to enter into the ovum through zona pellucida and the plasma membrane. So this induces the completion of the meiotic division of the secondary oocyte. The second meiotic division is also unequal and results in the formation of secondary polar body and haploid home. These things we were discussed when we were discussing the oogenesis. Do you remember? Yes. So the finally it will be gives rise to the haploid ovum, isn't it? Then what will happen the later? So what will happen? The haploid nucleus of the sperm and that of the ovum is fused together form a diploid zygote. Did you got it? So that fusion of the N and N will be gives rise to the 2N. So here there is a question arises, how actually, so after the releasing of the the sperms or the semen into the vagina, how these sperms come to know that where exactly the ovum or the female gamete is present. So remember here it is also, this process are purely based on the chemotaxis. So that means they will generally secrete, including animals like of even humans as well as in the mammals also. So those male and female gametes are attracted by one another by the secreting certain chemicals. So this phenomenon is called chemotaxis. So that means the chemical secreted by the female gamete is called fertilizing. It is also known as gynogomon. Okay, that is nothing but gynogamon or the fertilizing, and the chemical secreted by the male gamete is called androgamon, or it is also known anti-fertilizing. Because of this chemical secretion, that male gametes come to know that the where the exactly the female gamete is present or particular region, so that it will start moving or start swim towards the female gamete exactly. Okay, yeah. So after the question arises, so let me to tell you one interesting thing. So that means I mean the implantation. I will tell you about implantation also. So after this fertilization, so how sex of the child is decided before the birth. Remember about the sex determination of the child. Again we will discuss in the 5th chapter in detail. But let me to tell you briefly because it's interesting, very interesting. The sex of the child is determined at the stage of fertilization. Okay, but how it will be? The sex chromosomes of the male parent, it is generally consisting of two types, isn't it? That is nothing but X and Y. Hence, the male individual produces two types of the sperms carrying X and Y chromosomes. Okay, so hence the male is also called heterogametic by nature. Okay, then whereas the female parent has XX chromosomes and the female produces only one ovum carrying X chromosome. So hence this condition, the female is also called homogametic. That means whatever they produces two chromosomes, that is haploids, even though N and N, it will be containing same, that is X chromosomes. What about the male? It will be containing different, either it may be X or Y. Okay, so then what happens after the fusion of a sperm and ovum? The zygote would carry, it is depends upon the fusion. Once again, either they carry XX or XY. So the zygote, if it carrying XX chromosome, would develop into the female child, and the zygote carrying XY chromosome would develop into the male child. So this is actually how the fate of the sex of the child it will be decides. Okay. So after this exactly the process will continue in the form of the implantation. Okay. Yeah. So let me to explain how exactly the implantation takes place. Yes. The first of all, what is the definition or what is the meaning of implantation? I told you in the beginning of this class also, the implantation is nothing but attachment of the blastocyst to the endometrium wall of the uterus is called implantation. Let me to repeat once again. The implantation is a process that is nothing but the attachment of the blastocyst to the endometrium wall of the uterus is called implantation. Let us discuss one by one the step-by-step mechanism. Here I will tell you the left side, you just observe how the process is going on. In the beginning stage, that's the formation of the zygote. Then the cells get started dividing. It is nothing but 2-cell stage. Then it is get converted to 4-cell stage. Then there is a formation of the 8-cell stage, 16-cell stage. Then it will be blastocyst. Okay. So now let me explain how it will happen step-by-step mechanism. The zygote starts moving through the isthmus of the oviduct towards the uterus, during which the zygote undergo mitotic cell division is called the formation of cleavages. It is in the form of, as I said from the beginning, 2-cell stage will turn into the 4 cells, then 4-cell stage it will turn into the 8-cell stage, then later into the 16 daughter cells. So they are called blastomeres. Okay, so that means zygote undergo mitotic division, so in the form of the cleavages, starts as it moves through the isthmus towards the uterus and forms 2, 4, 8 and 16 daughter cells called blastomeres. Did you get it? Just observe this one. Yeah. So what happens next? Now the embryo, that means the embryo with 8 to 16 cell blastomeres is called morula. Okay. So these things again you should study in the practical also. So one more question they will ask. What is morula? The embryo with 8 to 16 cell stage, or we can also say 8 to 16 blastomeres is called morula. I hope you can identify. Then what happens next? the marula continues to divide and transforms into blastocyst as it moves further into the uterus. Okay, yeah. So then what happens next? What will be? See, here you can identify the divisions also. In a blastocyst, the blastomeres are arranged into an outer layer that is nothing but generally we call trophoblast. Remember, and the inner cell mass attached to the trophoblast. Okay, did you get it? Here let me to explain neatly. The blastomeres in the blastocyst are arranged into an outer layer called trophoblast, and inner group of cells attached to trophoblast is called inner cell mass. Okay, then, and what happens next? The trophoblast layer then gets attached to the endometrium wall of the uterus, and the inner cells divide rapidly and cover the blastocyst. As a result, the blastocyst becomes embedded in the endometrium wall of the uterus. So this is also called implantation. Did you got it? Yes. So that is nothing but here generally the trophoblast layer then get attached to the endometrium wall of the uterus, isn't it? So then what it will be? Actually, the trophoblast layer gives a nourishment to the inner cell mass. Also, it gets attached to the endometrium. Remember, the inner cell mass gets differentiated into 3 germ layers. Okay, so that is nothing but outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm, and inner endoderm. So this 3 layered structure is also called gastrula. Okay, and this forms the embryo. Fine. Yes, I hope you can identify the structure also, the gastrula. The phenomena is nothing but gastrulation, and the form structure, the 3 layered structure is called, yes, gastrula. So here the diagrammatic representation where you can identify clearly the structure of endometrium wall, uterine cavity, then uterine mucosal cells, the blastocyst, how it will be digest. That means it fixes the uterine mucosa. Then in the next stage, the endometrium grows over and surrounds the embryo. Okay, then so after the attachment, the uterine cells divide rapidly and covers the blastocyst, so that as a result the blastocyst becomes embedded in endometrium. This is also called, yes, implantation, and this implantation leads to pregnancy. So this is the actually at a glance the fertilization and implantation at a glance. So this diagram they are also given in the textbook. Yes. Okay, yeah. So usually implantation takes place on the 7th day of the fertilization. Remember, okay, because they will ask sometimes in competitive also on which particular day it will be takes place. Usually the implantation takes place on 7th day of fertilization. And even when it comes to the blastocyst, we will also discuss about this one in the practical also. The blastocyst, it is a multicellular embryo formed by the repeated mitotic division of the zygote, and that is going to attach the endometrium wall of the uterus. Okay, so this is how exactly I hope you can identify, yes, from the beginning stages after the the ovulation. If you just look from the beginning also, the ovary releases, then the corpus luteum, maturing follicle, then it leads to the ovulation, then it will be give stage to the secondary oocyte. Yes, the fertilization you can identify here. Then the sperm nucleus is fusing with the egg nucleus, then which leads to the formation of the zygote. Then it will start dividing in the form of the then it will be give stage to the 2 cell stage. Then it will be turns into the cleavages, the 4 cell stage, 8 cell stage. Then it will turns into the morula, that is the 16th blastomeres, isn't it? Then morula turns into the blastocyst. Then finally it will be turns into the implanted blastocyst. So this is how the fertilization and implantation at glance you can identify the stages also. Okay, so let it be. The next class we will continue with respect to the pregnancy and embryonic development as well as the parturition. Thank you. Have a nice day.